I'm going to just go and do all kinds of crazy stuff.
That's fine. I don't think it's me. Oh, wait. All right. I think we're ready to get started. Janice, if you want to go live.
Okay, we're good to go. Give me 1 second before we do the roll. I have an email from Chessa. She needs the link. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, she should be joining us in just a moment.
So was I the only one that couldn't find the link?
You know, you have to go and register.
I couldn't find any email like that in my inbox.
I couldn't either, so I went to the agenda and got the link there.
I did what
Ah,
Nora did.
Okay, I'll remember that for the future.
Yeah, I did that too.
I did what Sharon told me to do.
Just let me know when you're ready. We're live streaming though.
I couldn't see Jessa. Okay, awesome. I'm ready. Can you do a roll call certified quorum, please?
Yes. Town of Ashland, Miss Amos.
Here,
Chesterfield County, Miss Smith.
Here,
Miss Walker.
Here.
Hanover County, Mr. Vadunez. Henrico County, Mr. Yor.
Here,
Miss Smidler.
Here.
City of Richmond, Miss Clark.
Here.
BDOT, Mr. Mann.
Here.
Mr. Riblet. Miss McAdory.
I'm here. Good morning. And Mark is actually on the phone. He's just listening in as a panelist, I think.
Okay. Plan RBA, Mr. Parsons.
Here.
Mr. Ariel. And Mr. Bushing.
Here.
Tri-Cities MPO, Mr. Swakowski.
Here.
All right, that concludes the roll call for attendance.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to our November 2nd Fall Line Working Group meeting. Right now, I will entertain any consideration of amendments to the meeting agenda. Hearing none, we will go to item 4, open public comment period. Chet or Janice, do we have anyone from the public?
We've not had any requests ahead of time, and there's no one in the meeting today asking for time on the agenda.
Okay, awesome. All right. I guess we're gonna move right into the VDOT update. I know that Liz sent out something yesterday. Liz, did you send it to everyone or just Chet and I? Because then I saw something I deferred it to Irana, but
I sent it to a few, Chet, Todd, you, and Barb, the ones I had been speaking to about trail stuff. So
yeah, and then I think mainly what was said in that was just really like updated numbers. So we will discuss that. We will discuss that spreadsheet, so that's fine. Mr. Mann, thank you so much for being here today. I guess I will turn it over to you, Mark and Liz, to give the VDOT update on anything on the state budget, design guidelines, the spa, and furnish and install.
Hey, thanks, Dorona. I'm just going to defer to Liz since she's way more up to date on this than I am, but thank you.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks, Shane. So first, the state budget update, and nothing, a lot has happened. There has not been any money allocated to the Fall Line Trail. One budget action that did happen that impacts our district is the Tobacco Heritage Trail. There was $1 million set aside for pre-scoping. And really all that means is the $1 million is to kind of, we're going to use that $1 million to do really early pre-scoping, find out what's been done thus far, get the correct players together, find out what needs to be built, what that might cost and how long that might take. And then that's really all we're going to use that $1 million for at this time. If there's money left over, we might advance based on what we find out with that preliminary work. There were a couple other trails that also got that $1 million pre-scoping amount, and not in the Richmond district. I don't have that list in front of me, but I can get that for you, Chet, to send out. Next item is design guidelines. Similar to what I mentioned last time, we've kind of pressed pause on that. We still need to set up a meeting with Tool to kind of work through some of the conflicts. The good news on that is nothing impacts, again, the first design build package in the northern section. And the reason for that, a couple reasons. One being that it's mostly rural. So a lot of the specific design stuff that's talked about in the design guides aren't relevant. The other thing is any AASHTO or MUTCD or any other requiring guidance is going to be followed. So all the technical requirements of the shared use path are going to be met just based on, requirements from our RFP. We're still planning on moving forward. It's just have to take a little bit of a back seat to getting the package ready for the RFP for the design build. And as you know, most of you know, we've been doing some smart scale work too. So we will pick that up probably middle of this month and get going back on that again. Design build segment updates. I will kind of combine that one with the CTV SPA update. So the first design build obviously is the northern section from the Chickahominy Bridge up. The SPA agreement for that was for the $8.3 million that has been signed, or CTV took action to allow the VDOT commissioner and CVTA to enter into agreements at their level for Fall Line Trail. So then we sent the SPA to Chet and Eric, and they got the CVTA signatures that are required. We are now wiring that up to the commissioner for signature. At that point, the agreement will be executed and we can reflect the money in the SIP. So you won't see the money in our live SIP right now until we get all those signatures on there and process that. We have no concerns with getting that done in time. We're still on schedule to advertise the RFP by the end of December. What else for that one? For Design Build 2, that's the southern section from Patton Park up to West 100 Road. We're still plowing away with PE, or not PE, but getting up to the RFP advertisement. We're still shooting for middle of next year, calendar year 23. And then ideally construction will begin 6 months following. That's the same schedule we've been going with. As you know, we don't have a Design Build 3 yet. We'll talk about that more when we get to the spreadsheet as that is listed there. For Design Build 2, I'm jumping down now to the SPA agreements. We've talked about the SPA agreement for Design Build 1. The SPA agreement for Design Build 2 is no longer needed as we requested funding from the CTB pot that had been allocated to the Tri-Cities area anyway, or the southern portion, I shouldn't say Tri-Cities area. So we fully funded that. We also, I forgot to mention, fully funded the deficit for Design Build 1 with that money as well. So both of those are fully funded at this time and ready to move forward. Furnish and install and amenities, or furnish and install. I'm sorry.
Can I ask one question on that? Yeah. So there's like 8.3 million for Design Build 1 and then 8.2 million for Design Build 2 that I see kind of accredited to the CVTA's Fall Line allocation. So those are the total amounts that those two packages need from the.
We actually didn't take, so we did, the 8.3 was the original allocation from the committee or from the CVTA. That one we are using for Design Build 1. At last meeting, we were going to request additional money for Design Build 1 and some initial money for Design Build 2. We've fulfilled both of those requests using non-CVTA funding sources.
So does Design Build 2, I'm just looking at the spreadsheet you sent yesterday. Does the Design Build 2 still have that 8.2 need from the 104?
No.
Okay, awesome. So it's really just the 8.3 that's coming off of the 104 that we'll be talking about later.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
For the furnish and install of amenities contract, we
Can
met.
I interrupt real quick before
yeah.
we get too far? So the southern one is 8.2 total?
No, the southern one. So the southern one includes several of the Chesterfield UPCs. Let me pull up my spreadsheet real quick. And I had a southern total. It's like 27 something. I think I took it out of the spreadsheet.
Okay, that lines up a little better.
Yeah, so the southern design build includes several of the Chesterfield existing projects, but we're not, obviously those are funded, so we're not adding that into the need. And then it includes the rest of it. So it's around, I think it was around 27 or 30. And the need is what's reflected in the spreadsheet now. Let me scroll up to that. Are we
Yeah,
good with
Liz,
that?
I'm not sure if what I have is old or not, but it says 31.
Okay, that's, if it's what I sent this morning, that should be it. Although, actually, no, I'm sorry, 27.5. If you're looking at the spreadsheet I sent this morning
Okay.
on row 9, that 27.5 includes the estimates. Let me hold on one second. I don't think that includes Chesterfield's. Sorry, I scrolled too far. That does not include the 3 Chesterfields, but those are already funded through TAP and some other sources. So the 27.5 is what is needed for design build 2, and that's funded.
So design build 2 costs more than 27.5. I'd have to add in the CMAC or RSTP TAP projects.
Right.
To really get the total cost.
Right.
Would I have to add in that $1 million that wasn't $1 million that Tri-Cities got?
The 2 million,
Yeah, 2 million.
I think that's on there already in the SIP. That's already on there. So that's accounted for. That's accounted for in the total allocations already.
So the total project cost for the southern section is 27.5 plus the other money, TAP, CMAC, but
3
not the
projects,
2
yeah.
million,
Correct.
not the 2 million.
So in the, if you look at the spreadsheet, let's see. Column J, well, has all of the funding shown. But it's the lump sum of the 27,581 includes that 2 million, Barb, that you're asking about. So row 9, column J, 27,581. That includes the 2 million that Tri-Cities got and the CTB money. It does not reflect the TAP projects that you guys have.
But those will be part of that.
They're in it,
package.
yeah. So if you'll look in the spreadsheet on column A, it says design, what design build it is. So for example, row 8 is one of your projects. So it's under the design build UPC 121511. It's a child UPC to that parent. So 121613 is that UPC, and that's why I reflected that funding in a separate row, is to keep those tracked.
I see.
So if you were to total from row 9 up in column I, that's the real cost of design build 2. If you include
Yeah.
yours, the Chesterfield projects.
Okay. Yeah,
Send that
so
out to everybody.
row 2 all the way down to 9.
Mhm.
So the
And Ron, we're going to
project's,
send that out. Yeah.
the
Sorry.
project's 40 million.
Yep. If I total, let me total that. $38.9. Yep. 39.9. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thanks.
I had to take that out because putting that, and I had that number in there, but it affected the total cost. And I couldn't get confused why my total cost didn't add up. So I took it out.
This you wanted to talk about the furnish and install.
Yep. Furnish and install amenities. We met preliminarily with Henrico just to get some ideas. I know that the CVTA obviously set aside 75,000 for the wayfinding, and as I understand it, with talking with Todd, that'll be separate from the furnish and install amenities contract. So we're going to sit down with our L&D folks and hammer through some of the specifics, like are we going to include mile markers, and if so, what are the specs, so that Henrico and anyone else locally administering segments can follow that same tune, and just make sure we're all on the same page. Yesterday's meeting was really just an information gathering meeting, so we don't have too much to offer after that, beyond that, but we're going to meet again, hopefully next week, and get things rolling, get some numbers and some specifically what we need to pull together.
And who's making the decisions about the amenities? Is this a design guideline group discussion or this group discussion?
I think it probably needs to be a design guideline. I mean, it needs to be a trail group committee, I would think. As far as, are you talking about the actual contract to figure out what's going in it, or to actually design the specs or whatever? Or both?
I think I mean both.
Yeah, I think that's to be determined.
Okay.
Again, I didn't have Scott Fisher on the call yesterday to talk about what exactly we're doing with the design build. I have an idea of what we're doing. And so the first thing we wanted to do was mesh that with what Henrico is doing to make sure we're doing the same thing, and then come back to the larger group. Todd, did I butcher that, or is that where you left the meeting also?
No, that's accurate, Barb. So what we talked about yesterday was, okay, what's going to come out of the the RFP or the on-call contract that Plan RVA is going to oversee for the wayfinding? What's exactly included in that? What's the timing of that, and how does that fold into furnish and install? The furnish and install is going to be a kind of a bigger effort in terms of potential, the wayfinding signage. Once that's kind of identified, what it looks like, where it goes, that will come out of the Plan RVA led effort. Go inform the furnish and install contract, so that whoever has that has a plan of, okay, we need a wayfinding sign here that says this, a wayfinding sign here that says that. To Liz's point about mile markers, that she's going to take that back to Scott Fisher and team next Tuesday to determine if that will be installed, if they'll be installed as part of the design build, or whether that can be phase one of furnish and install as the VDOT design build section to the north, which we assume will come first of projects they're delivering, and then the Henrico sections will all be within 6 months to a year of each other for completion. So do we just come in with phase one of furnish install contract, do all the mile markers as those sections come online, as well as the overlay of the other furnish and install items, which still have to be determined. So like benches, what do the benches look like, or if there's any branding on that, where do they go, picnic tables, bike fixing stations, trash cans, the whole shebang. That's part of the furnish and install that nobody's really talked about yet. We have some illustrative examples that our landscape architect sub has provided. So when we went to our public hearing, we had, here's what these things could look like, here's where those things may go, without any definitive, we know exactly what these things will look like. This is just what they may look like. Here's a bench. What we're doing with our design sections and our segments is we're identifying where we think those items need to go. It's like, what are you going to put at a trailhead? Is there going to be a bike fixing station? Where's the kiosk go? And basically putting in the footprints for those without knowing what they look like. So we're making guesses on, okay, we're going to assume it's a standard 6 foot long bench. It's going to be a standard size picnic table. So here's where the pads for those things go. And then the furnish and install can come on top and install those things. And we can work on the uniformity as we go down the trail from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So that still has to be worked out. Who oversees all that? We haven't decided. I mean, VDOT's agreed to administer the furnish and install contract, correct, Liz?
Last I heard, yes.
Yeah, but at a minimum, this group will help inform all that. If we want to bring in any of the other stakeholders in, like sports backers and Capital Trail Foundation, to help work out those specifics, we probably need to move towards that relatively soon. Like I said, it's not holding up anything in Henrico because we're already kind of deciding where those things will go, and we're having placeholders for them. If that makes sense.
Thanks.
Thanks, Todd. Any other questions? Want me to move on to, well, I guess we already talked about, the spreadsheet was the other big thing I was gonna talk about. That's not really on my list though. So
Liz, can actually, before we move off of all of those items, we talked briefly yesterday about the Plan RVA wayfinding effort and how to make, I guess, how to move forward with that. Do we want to touch on that?
right. So one of the options that we thought about was potentially using VDOT Central Office Planning's on-call contract. I don't have an answer yet. I was hoping to have an answer this morning. I don't yet have an answer if there's contract authority available. With it only being 75,000, I think it's certainly feasible. And I'm planning on getting an answer on that and reporting back to you guys. I could shoot you and Chet an answer if that's what the group wants to do.
Yeah, and
Is there another mechanism?
Obviously we need to loop you and your team in chat, but if you don't have access to a bench contract through the state, you have put out an RFP, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I would like to talk about this more. So yeah, I think we probably have a couple different options for accessing bench contracts.
So yeah, when you're ready to talk about that, we just want to make sure that it whatever you need, we collectively can provide.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you, Liz, for that. And we'll just go right into item number 6, which, Liz, if you want to start off by talking about the spreadsheet, I'm going to share it, and then we can have further conversation.
Sure. Do you want me to share it? I can share it
Sure.
if that's easier. All right, hang on just a second. I have too many screens, I lose my mouse. Okay, can you guys see the spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay. So let's scroll to the top. I'll just go column by column and explain what each column is, and then we can start kind of rolling through it. So column A is obviously if it's a design build package or a suggested design build package, we put that in there. And then if there's an associated UPC with either the design build package or an existing UPC. So for instance, row 4, column A, it's included in the design build package 2. The design build package 2 UPC is 121,511, but this specific row, it was an existing UPC 118966. It's just going to be lumped in with the design build package. Column B is just the trail segment. You've seen that before. Nothing's changed with that. Column C, project location, that's the mile marker. Nothing's changed. Localities, I've tried to clean that up a little bit. There were some of these were wrong or just had multiple localities in each row, but I've tried to clean that up, and I'll show you why in just a second. Column E, the description, nothing's changed there, just the to and from. If there's an associated UPC, for instance, row 5, I wrote in what that UPC is, just so you'll know, and what the description is. Column I, that is, so it says current or calendar year total estimate. What that means is if we have a project in the system that has an actual estimate, or if a locality, for instance, Henrico is doing PE for a lot of theirs, so they have their estimates, but it's not yet in our system. That's what that estimate is. If there is neither of those two exist, then it's the estimate that we developed for calendar year 27 that we presented to you guys last year. Any questions on what that column is or how we got there? So again, it's either a current estimate if there's an existing UPC, or if it's a local project that they're working on, or it's the estimate that we provided for calendar year 27. Column J, other committed funding. That is if there's local funds on a project, if there's TAP, revenue sharing, CMAQ, RSTP, Smart Scale, anything other than non-CVTA, it's reflected in column J. So obviously that's going to be part of the equation that subtracts from the total cost. Column K, if there was previously allocated CVTA money. Full disclosure, the only thing in this column is going to be the 8.3 for the design build 1, and then we still had from last time an 11 million. And so I just need to work with Dirana and Chet, you guys, to clarify if that 11 million was put on. We don't have to solve that right now. I wanted to point it out because we do need to resolve. As this currently as is, it's deducting from the 104. If that needs to change, then we can change that certainly. Column L is just math exercise balance to complete. And then column M, if there's been a specific request, like we mentioned last time, Henrico had a number and City of Richmond had a number, and then we proposed potentially design build 3. So that would be the current request or potential request from the CVTA from the 104. So I've got numbers for the City of Richmond that we had discussed, a 19 and a 5. That's a 19 for Commerce, 5 for Manchester Bridge. And then Henrico had a few you can see on the spreadsheet here. And then for design build 3, is that what this is? Hold on. I think I skipped design build 3. There it is. And then for design build 3, I put the numbers in. Again, this isn't, this is an idea based on the conversations we'd had previously of what could be asked from the 104. If you scroll down, that total of the current ask is 106. So right off the bat, without even the remaining segments of the trail, there'll have to be some conversations. I'm willing, obviously, if you see something in here that's not right, let me know. If you see something that we need to change, anything like that. There is one more column in where I just put a couple notes, where the estimate came from, what kind of money it is. If there's some of the projects are in addition to, there's the shared use path, there's also other elements. So I've noted that too. So sometimes the cost isn't exactly right because if there's a UPC that includes, let's say, the shared use path, some intersection improvements and a sidewalk. Only the shared use path is a fall line trail, obviously, but there's no way for me to pull out what costs what. There's only a few instances of that. What questions do you guys have?
Yeah, I have one quick question on the columns. So go up back to the right, Liz, the last two columns, or the next to last two. So the balance to complete and the potential. So could we say that the balance to complete are all those that are those amounts that are unfunded?
Yeah, that's the true need for the fall line trail.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And then what somewhat has been prioritized or submitted by localities kind of represents the blue column, which is the 106 number.
Right. And I wouldn't say necessarily prioritize. It's just when that's information gathering. There, Henrico said they need this much. You guys said you need this much. We said we could potentially design build 3 for this much. So they're really just suggestions, VDOT's not suggesting any one go before the other. We're just providing the information.
And I use prioritize because we submitted what.
Okay, fair.
Yeah,
Yep.
what we wanted to see. So, okay, so that's all I have, and then I'll move to everyone's hands. I'll start with Todd, then Chet, and then Barb, and then Miles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I didn't look at every estimate for every segment, but looking at the Henrico estimates, which are column I guess, and highlighted in yellow. Those numbers are low, Liz. I assume that's what was in the original A to P estimates. maybe, because that's not reflecting the actual estimates as we're between 30 and 90% plans for each.
Okay, so it was either from the calendar year 27, which was the last update Jason Williams did that we provided you guys either this spring or last fall, I can't remember when. And then you had sent me some notes a while back, but if there was a UPC, I updated it to match whatever was in the SIP, except for the one UPC you emailed me about yesterday. And actually I have an email to shoot you about that one. We have a different number of allocations. So
Right,
if,
and I responded to that this morning, sorry about the
okay,
response. That the 79K difference on that was some old CMAQ money, and there was a match requirement for that. So we had included that match requirement in
okay,
that's because that had
Makes
not
sense.
been otherwise committed. I mean, for
Okay.
example, on segments 7A and 7B that you see on the screen now,
mhm,
you know, the total estimate for that section is significantly higher than
okay,
what's reflected there. So I'm not sure where that number is coming from. I mean, the Longdale section estimate is 29.3 million, which is reflected in the ask amount.
right, so that's, yeah, and I made that note last time is that if it's not in our system, we were just using what was estimated through inflation from the from the ATP study.
Right.
So that's a good point. And if you guys could go through and identify anywhere where the estimate is wrong and let me know, I can update it.
But
And that-
most of the rest of our sections are pretty close because they actually have UPCs and stuff,
Right.
because Longdale didn't.
Okay.
Because you didn't have other information to rely on other than what we had provided. So we can update that. I'm just concerned that if there's other sections throughout
Right.
the length of the fall line that are that much of a delta, then
That's a problem.
that's a problem. So
So could we make that a to-do list for everyone that has segments on here to just, if you're working on estimates and you have a different number, can you let me know?
Check.
Okay. I like the layout. I guess I just have some general questions and I may have missed this explanation. So if we're looking at the blue column, that's the potential ask, where our actual number is 104.5.
Right.
Should we
your
be taking out?
actual number is 104.5 minus the 8.3.
Which is the 90.
Okay, so that was my
So-
first question. So,
Okay.
so we shouldn't be taking out the 19. We should just be taking out the 8.3 at the bottom of column K.
Right. So yeah, there was that 11,000 or 11 million that I had a question about up here in the city.
Right.
And if we take that out, then it's
And so
only
I-
8.3.
And I have a question about it too, because on the second page of the
I'm
second
not done with
tab,
my
rather,
questions.
the second tab of it, you had like CVTA year 3. Not the second. must
Oh,
be the
this one.
third.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
because I have questions about it. We had found, I was digging through actions, trying to make sure we had everything documented. And we stumbled what we thought was an action to allocate 11 million to that project outside of the 104. And that's something that we brought up at the last meeting that we just need to clarify. And if it's not, I'll hit delete and take it out. I just never got an answer. remember
This
we
is
asked you
Miles.
guys.
This is Miles. So the 11 million comes from the fall line pot. So it was previous money, but it was done as part of the round 3 or whatever we're calling that year 3 action. So it was done at the same time as all the other projects, but it was using the previous fall line pot money.
So it does
So
come
it
out
comes
of
out
the
of the
104.
104. Yes.
Okay. So then, yeah, that's your balance. So Chet, to answer your question, the balance of CVTA money, well, 19 has been spent basically of the 104.
Okay. So I guess my next question is, does this table account for any CVTA local or possible impacts from smart scale? Like, will that be another subtraction at some point?
So the CVTA local, it's reflected only if it's in it as a no post in the SIP or if someone told me about it. So I did not go through your spreadsheet and add it in there. If that's something that we need to do, then I just want to make sure I go off the right numbers. And your second question was, I forgot.
Smart scale impacts.
Oh, smart scale. Yeah, we can't make any predictions on that. Once, if anything's
Right.
funded, we'll go through immediately and mark those as funded.
Okay.
It does now that you mentioned that, it does not even indicate where CVTA regional has been asked to lead leverage. I don't know if you guys have, obviously the allocations aren't there, so it doesn't reflect any of that.
But do we have any? We didn't have any. Do we have we didn't have any smart scale projects that leverage the Fall Line Trail money. I don't think.
This is
I mean,
Miles again. The only one that I'm aware of is the 19 million ask for commerce phase 2 in the city. That's the only one that I'm aware of that is directly Fall Line pot funding potentially.
Okay, yeah. You mean, yeah, so I get it now, because I was thinking of some like smaller local ask. Which we'll get to that one. Because
Yeah,
that would just be considered something to come out of the pot, which it is being considered right now. So she's showing the 19 million as a part of the request in
Right,
this blue column.
right here.
Yeah.
Row 34, column M.
So that if that's the only one, then it is she has it shown here.
And that's just based off, Jarana, some emails we had shared a month or so ago. That, and then the 5 million for Manchester.
Yeah, we wanted it considered here.
Right. Okay.
Awesome. So Barb,
we have some projects that are not CVTA funded. They're CMAC or RSTP or Smart Scale on Route 1 that some of them started really before the Ashland to Petersburg study was finalized. So they've had to be revised as time has gone on. And the most recent revision, VDOT asked us to try to widen the trail to 10 feet where we could. And they committed to funding the gap, for the increase associated with that. So roughly there are 4 projects and they're going to need about $1 million between all 4. So I can send Liz, I can send you that. But
Yeah,
I think that you were intending on getting that out of the CTB money.
Yes, that's correct. Not out of the CVTA money. And so to your point, I knew about one of them, which is the one I've highlighted, row 19. So the estimate in the SIP is actually lower than the 1.6, but I just left it at the original 27 estimate to account for that. But if we know exactly which UPCs and we're thinking around $1 million, I'll add it to the estimate, and I'll also add it to the non-CVTA committed funds, and we'll go ahead and get those transfers rolling because we've got that pot. We can transfer the money to it.
Okay.
good. And that's what you were talking about yesterday, Barb, right? Awesome, got it. Miles?
Thank you. Liz, can you scroll back up to the top? So I had a question on this design build number 2 and the deficit and what's needed from CVTA. So I see on line 8 that there's a almost $10 million deficit on one of the segments that's in there. So do we or not need our money?
We do not. So we have fully funded design build 2 with the CTB money. That's why the column M has no ask in it.
Okay, so there's not really a deficit then? Is that?
No, and now that you pointed that out, I've got to look close. It's because there's always a little bit of confusion when there's a design build UPC and a child UPC. So I'll have to look at that one. I don't remember that being there.
Okay.
Let's see. I can do that while we're talking.
Because I was trying to do the summing up the columns like we were talking about earlier, and that I mean, if you just add I and compare it to J, you wind up with that deficit still. So that's where I was.
Right. Right. Which is probably why it's in the spreadsheet. Let's see, 1, 2, 1, 6, 1, 3. So 121613 is an UPC independent of, so it's included in design build 2, but it's not, I didn't calculate it with the numbers for design build 2. So they're figured separately. So all of the, anything that has a UPC in Chesterfield for that has design build 2, and so it's got the green squares, those are not figured into the numbers. So that money does, that project does still need money. It's just not an ask because that was an existing project. It's not a current ask from the Fall Line Trail Pod. That's how I viewed it. Technically, that project needs money. It's in the system as it's TAP. That's a conversation we'd have to have, Barb, with you. You know, are you going to try to get additional TAP, or do we need to get money elsewhere?
So I think the TAP scope was only like one subset of that whole section. It was like a single block.
That's
that would
right.
be the 574,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just
Okay.
a teeny thing. Yeah.
Okay. So Barb, you and I might need to get a phone call and make sure, just go through this spreadsheet and make sure that I have the UPC that's associated with the correct segment and that we've got the cost reflected correctly. 'Cause
Okay.
there's a couple of like that where the projects are more than just the shared use path, right? And I don't know that are there? I thought, or maybe, well, there are in other localities. There may not be in Chesterfield.
The
I just
only
know that-
one is that Food Lion to Falling Creek Avenue, where we're building sidewalk on the west side in addition to the trail on the east side and some bus stops.
Okay.
That's like a $12 million smart scale.
Is that, 119600
yeah.
Falling Creek? Yeah.
Yeah. So that 12 million is really doing more than just the Fall Line Trail.
Yeah. Good thing. The thing that's good about that in this equation is that the cost matches the funding.
Yeah,
So it's a
we haven't
zero ask
started
right here.
design yet.
Right. Well, yeah. But from this perspective, from the fall, it doesn't show a balance to complete. But a couple other ones we still do. I guess that one might be the only one. It's a big.
So do you think we're gonna have, I guess, I think overall, good job, Liz, though, on this spreadsheet. I can definitely understand it, so, and definitely in getting the design build too, not really, coming out of the 104.
Can I show one more thing on the spreadsheet? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
There had been an ask of the last meeting to kind of show it by locality. So I did the best I could. Design build 2 is that's another reason I broke it out separate, and this kind of explains it better. So row 2, that's the design build 2, even though it includes the Chesterfield projects, the money is not shown for the Chesterfield projects. I pulled those out separately so I could do it by jurisdiction. So anything that's in design build 2 that's in Chesterfield is incorporated in this dollar amount, the 120. But basically, column D shows you the cost by jurisdiction. Column E shows you the CVTA committed funding by jurisdiction. So it's got the 11 and the 8.3. And then it shows you any other committed funding by jurisdiction. And then the balance to fully fund by jurisdiction. And last I checked, these totals did match the other page.
And I still, I still overall think that and it made me think about it more from the full body meeting on the CTB $40 million plus that they allocated to the Fall Line Trail, and that it wasn't specifically awarded for non-planning district. I didn't think it was specifically awarded to VDOT, and I definitely didn't think it was awarded to any one locality. So then the authority acted on approving the design build 1 and 2, which subsequently equates to this 27.5 million of CTB Fall Line Trail dollars. being to those localities, those jurisdictions listed, Petersburg, Colonial Heights, and Chesterfield. And so I am not too sure why we alienated from the localities in which the dollars are going. It wasn't 27 million of, VDOT just coming and giving to the design build 2. It was from the CVTA advocating through the CTV members to get this money for the Fall Line Trail. And so while I appreciate the separation and can see benefits in the separation, there isn't this separation of where the project and those dollars will be spent, which specifically, as we look at these totals and who's in our planning district, impacts Chesterfield County. And so I did speak at the full body meeting, and there is some anticipation and expectation that we would be able to have a spending plan that has the Fall Line Trail dollars beginning to be programmed and allocated through the spending plan, as well as I-64 and the other regional projects that we have. So there's a very, specific need for us to really try and prioritize, allocating this 104. I think that the CTP dollars, it acts as a good cushion for overages when estimates come in. So I don't necessarily think that we have to add it into the total to prioritize the list, but I excluding it again, I've given my reasoning to why I don't think that it is necessarily has to be excluded. So again, we have to get from 106 to, what is it, approximately like 84 million, because if we count the 11 million and the 8 million, that's 84 million of available dollars on that, for that blue column. So I know, and so Henrico and Richmond has made an ask, and Chesterfield, working with VDOT, has the design build 3. I wanted to share just a map that we had come up with.
For clarification, the design build 3 was just a suggestion from VDOT.
Yes, and I know
Right.
you did say that yesterday. And we and not necessarily maybe the projects that would be selected. So I guess my question would be in helping to get that dollar amount down. That's why I wanted to show you the map, because we talked about that and seeing, okay, where really do the gaps exist? If with some of the areas that Richmond wants to fund, as well as Henrico wants or requesting dollars for, what does that look like in the gap of what small wins or what closures, whether the design build 3 or otherwise for Chesterfield, really will have a good impact on connectivity for the trail. I think that we talked about that yesterday. Let me see if I can, I guess Liz still sharing.
Yep, I can unshare.
And
I
this
think-
is like really, let me see. Awesome. Really back of the envelope, and our team just trying to make something visual. Let's see. So if everyone can see this, I'm gonna make it a little small just so you can see that this is the entirety of the trail there. And then I can, make it see a little bit smaller. So what this represents is that's the entire trail, all the segments. And what you see here is what pretty much is requested in the blue section minus the blue section plus DB 1 and 2, Henrico and Richmond request, and pretty much, this is where the gaps are shown, where there's no funding request or no priority. And so this is what it looks like, based on what is funded and what people have requested thus far. And as I talked about it in the full body meeting at the authority, I talked that there was large gaps in Richmond and Chesterfield, and Henrico that were unfunded. And with Henrico's request, it would really close the gap on completing a lot of their section. But again, based on their long history of funding it and in the trail, same with Ashland and so forth. So you can see where the two gaps are mainly in Richmond and Chesterfield. And again, that doesn't have the DB3 in there as far as, connectivity. So Barb, I don't know if that helps with maybe considering what the DB3 is that VDOT has, plus where, Chesterfield would want to, make easy gap closes for projects that could be funded out of the 104.
Yeah,
Or
so
the-
I know the city and Henrico have submitted priorities. And I took some time to think about that and be prepared for the meeting today to suggest priorities so that design build 3 isn't such a big ask, right? And we would want to extend the screen line that's hitting on Route 10 in Chester, coming from the south up. So our first priority would be to do section 2C, which is Route 10 to Chester Road, and then 2D, which is Chester to Galena. And then if we can really be greedy, go to Galena to Route 1. We've got a project at Route 1 that's funded. We haven't started design. So that would connect that little green guy that's above Quail Oaks to the northern termini of design build 2. So filling in that gap is our priority.
On the spreadsheet, I know you said I can see the 2 you said, and you said potentially the Galena, which is the segment 3A. And then was there another segment you just said?
Yeah, 2C, 2D, and 3A.
Okay.
We've had pretty good success getting stuff along Route 1 funded with other sources. And we think that this section that I'm talking about is probably not one that would compete well in other funding sources. So that's why we would want to get it funded through the CVTA. That stuff, I don't know if I'm using the right numbers, but it comes up to about 25. And,
I have one question. Thank you, Barb. That's awesome. One question for Liz on the spreadsheet for the design build 1. You have on the line 59, 7C3, you have that $5 million in there.
For the 4.9,
No, it says 5 million.
where are you? I'm sorry,
in the
what
blue
road?
column For design,
Oh, yeah, that was left. I need to take that out. That's left over. That was left over from last time. That's what we filled with the CTV money. So I just took it out.
I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of money. Okay, so we're getting there. So I'm gonna let Chet and Todd ask their questions, and I'm gonna come over to keep on my spreadsheet to see how we're gonna get to finish line. We're almost there. Chet.
Yeah, I guess, sorry, I forgot I had my hand raised. A couple questions. So I think I'm keying on the $85 million gap. Essentially, we show the difference between the 104 and the 19. That's kind of what is remaining. that we still need to fund. And I just wanted to remind everyone that there's a new Office of Trails, and we talked about this last Friday at the authority meeting, but Fall Line is not mentioned in any of that. And there's some concern that we're going to be left behind. And there's maybe an assumption, and this is just discussion that I've had with a couple people, that maybe the Fall Line is already taken care of. And obviously that's not the case. We need $85 million. So I think that this should be a talking point as we go back to working with our boards. And obviously the people who sit on the CBTA are well aware of this, but working with legislators, making sure that as this new office is stood up, that we are still prioritized along with the Shenandoah and all the other trails that have actually been mentioned by name. I guess my other question is more process related, as we are figuring out how to split up the remainder of the 104 that hasn't already been committed. What's the is there a do we have a prioritization process? Like, are we looking at certain data points, or are we focusing more on what the individual requests are from the three major impacted jurisdictions in terms of, what's the, does that make sense? I'm not saying what I mean to say very well.
No, I think, and I'll take that question. I think that, I think that I hear you, and I think that the one part is, there's the prioritization that occurred with the allocation of the dollars to the Fall Line Trail in the first place. And so then the question becomes, as we look at these segments, what is it how are we choosing? And I think it always goes to, in my opinion, to the localities. You can't tell me what to build first in my locality, because while it sounds good, when it comes down, we're picking things that we know has, ease of, public engagement, implementation, funding. So I think that there's a level in this, at least for this first round, with us having sat on this money, that, the localities, in my opinion, know best what can move forward. I think that, we're going to still be left with almost 100 million. I think it's 90. Let me check at the bottom. I just did it. We're going to left with a 94 million gap. So if we want to, I think potentially now that we're started to move forward and identify that gap, I think that we can begin some, maybe more logical completion to those. But again, it's going to be where a locality is and what, especially for Richmond, at least, what can actually get done based on whatever request. If we have something that is, so controversial, yet it finishes, a good connectivity section, I can't say that we'll be able to deliver on it. We can say we're going to move on it, and then it sits for 6 years. Or is it easier for me to go through design and public engagement so that, in 2 years, I know that I can move it forward? So again, I think that it has some locality input, and I know others have input, and I would welcome that. So I have Todd hand up, as well as Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, that map you had up there was pretty cool.
Oh, I can share it with y'all.
I have a question and then I guess a comment. So for my clarity, what is being proposed with Design Build 3 along on that map? What section does that cover?
So on that map, it's not shown because as we finished it up last night, and I just knew that it came in such a big package that we didn't have enough money. So, and I had talked to Barb, and she said that, they do have some priority that isn't all of the DB3. And that's what she spoke about with these 3 segments right here.
So design build 3 is just kind of a spitball at this point of what that may cover. Is that what I'm hearing?
VDOT, yeah,
Yeah,
VDOT
that-
just threw out design build 3 at a
Okay.
previous meeting.
Yeah, we just looked at it, what would be kind of low hanging fruit from a design build perspective, the same way we did for 1 and 2. Yeah, totally okay. Yeah, we don't have a preference if it needs to change.
Got it. So yeah, speaking real briefly for the Henrico section, the ask that we submitted is back in September with the adjustment of the 1 phase that has the CMAQ and HIP funding on it that has had a cost increase. That ask would fully fund everything within Henrico and keep us moving to we're ready, or actually already started in right away unofficially, but gets us to construction of the entirety of the Henrico sections and completion by anywhere from early 24 to mid to late 24. The entire 7.3 miles in Henrico would be completed. We've already done public hearing for the upper half. We've had public involvement in most of our lower halves. We do need to do a willingness, most likely for the 2 TAP funded sections, as well as for the CMAQ HIP funded section. But thus far, all the feedback has been very positive and supportive, and any comments we get through the public involvement process are generally recommendations on making safer crossings, which we're now adjusting. So to the point of to Chet's question about, how do we prioritize? I mean, one of the things we've been hearing from the electeds is we committed 104.5 million for CVTA. We need to start showing progress, and rather before we start going back for asking for money. So if we make Henrico sections whole, along with the design build section 1, which looks like it's whole, then we will actually have progress. By next year, you'll see, earth being moved. So that's, I think, it should be a priority for the CVTA to actually start moving dirt while we keep working on the rest of the sections.
And you guys need about 20 million?
No, we need 35.49.
Oh, show me that in that spreadsheet.
Is my screen still showing? So here, Bart, this is Henrico. So that number,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so, and that equals, that's 35,819.
Yeah, and we had a discrepancy of, so we had a cost increase on the federally funded section. That's mid section on it, and otherwise all our numbers are reflective of anywhere from 60 to 90% estimates. The bust on the spreadsheet is that the cost estimate that is reflected is not accurate, just based on design, the actual design, but the ask amount is correct.
Got it.
Joe? Wait, he disappeared.
I think my question just got answered. So the overall shortfall is 85 million.
Well, no. So now the 80, no, not the overall shortfall. This is the 84 that we are proposing to spend out of the 85 that we have. The blue column.
Okay.
Programming the rest of the CVTA money.
I
Yes.
gotcha. Okay. And what is, and I'm probably in this spreadsheet. Thank you for seeing it. And I'll spend some time, but not having had that, what is the overall funding shortfall based upon what has been allocated and what is needed?
94.
You said,
94, okay,
yeah,
so that's-
94 will remain even after we spend all of the 104.
So 94 is what we need to complete the trail. Okay,
Yes.
I was confusing that with the 85 number that was mentioned earlier. I understand.
And
But it
so
says-
that would be what we would take to the state and everywhere we can to try to fully fund it. But also having a number to say this is, the gap, and kind of taking away their thinking that it's fully funded, because it's not. And with the 84, we were like a little, like 3 million or so over what was available. And so we did have some flexibility, we being the city of Richmond, on the Manchester Bridge segment. I'm trying to find it, sorry. So where that number was a request of like 5 million, we're just going to be doing a lot of traffic and other analysis there. So we can utilize 1.5. So that's actually what Liz, I reduced for Richmond to help with the this number being under this 80. No, not that number.
Yeah, that one's not updated, but it was
I
around
know,
80. I
like,
think
not
it was
that number. But it'll be the
85.
104.
It's 85076367.
Oh yeah, and I'm still not getting 80. Are you sure it's 85? Because I just did 104 minus.
That's not the total. No, the 104 number is, hang on
Oh,
just a
it's
second.
different. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, it's 104,457,478.
Okay, good. And so that's this 85 number here.
Yep.
And so that number is what we needed to be under. On the spreadsheet. So, so this item was an action item. So essentially we would be the blue column here, having, directing Plan RVA and to create the spending plan for programming of these dollar amounts totaling 84 into the CVTA spending plan. Do we feel comfortable?
Madam Chair, this is Todd. So could you re-explain that?
Oh, sure. So totaling, and so that includes programming the $35 million plus whatever the numbers are, for Henrico's request. So those are all of those. If you can see, I did, I added up what your request was within this spreadsheet. And so those are all of the boxes that would be programmed for Henrico, which is essentially your ask. Richmond is at 23,500, which includes our 19 million ask, the 1.5 there, 3 million here. And then the Chesterfield, I don't know, I think I moved theirs to right here. The Chesterfield ask is what Barb spoke about, which would be these three segments here, totaling the 25.1 million. I don't know why my Richmond segment didn't. Oh, I just copied the number.
So okay, the only thing I'll say about the Henrico piece, that does not reflect the cost estimate increase for that one federally funded section that we just got updated last week. I'm okay waiting as we continue through the design of that phase to see if that need is really there. So under the condition that we can seek other funding sources for that as that section advances, I'm okay keeping the previously submitted number for Henrico, which is the one you have on that spreadsheet. And I mean, for all we know, we may get bids that come in lower and be able to give money back, but I can't sit here and say that.
You're so funny, Todd. Bids that come in lower.
We've actually, some of our recent bids for sidewalk projects and whatnot have been coming in lower than the engineer's estimates, so. Just saying. Good problem to have, though.
Hey, this is Liz. I just want to let you guys know I have to jump off for another meeting. I'm assuming there'll be minutes or whatever, but if anyone needs anything from me or has comments on the spreadsheet, please let me know.
Thank you, Liz. So I guess, I mean, I would entertain a motion to, accept the blue column of the spreadsheet as the spending plan for the year 1 and 2 of CVTA regional funds.
I'll make a motion to program the funding to the Henrico, Richmond, and Chesterfield projects as proposed. Is it reflected in the blue column?
It's all the blue. I mean, I made yours orange only because of I needed that conversation.
Because you know I love orange.
But yeah, that's all of Henrico's, and that's that number right there.
Okay.
I will second that motion, and then I don't know if I need to make an amended motion, or we can just talk about it after when you call a question.
Awesome. We open for discussion. Chet?
Thank you. Just to be clear, this is this motion would be to recommend to the full TAC.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm like, it's the same people. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I get confused. Awesome. So yeah, so it's been moved and seconded. Ms. Firestone, would you call roll call, please? Roll call vote.
Ms. Amos?
Did Todd have a question?
I did. I
Sorry,
mean, I
Todd.
think- yeah, thank you. I think this is all, I think we agreed that the blue column was accurate, but the balance of the spreadsheet needs to be reviewed and updated by each locality. So for example, I was saying that the estimate column for Henrico section is not correct.
And
But-
same with some of our
Yeah.
UPC non-CVTA projects.
So I think the ask would be, as part of this, is for every locality to review the spreadsheet and provide it back, the information back to Liz to update for the TAC meeting, so that everything is squared up on this. But it doesn't reflect what the ask numbers are, as I understand it.
It doesn't impact those, right?
Not as I see it now.
Yeah, because she just has this a total different column.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right, Ms. Firestone, we're ready for that roll call.
Okay, Ms. Amos,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Ms. Walker.
I don't
She
get
doesn't
Mr.
get to
Badu-
vote.
I don't get to vote, but thank you.
Okay. Mr. Badunez,
Aye.
Mr. Yor,
Aye.
Chair Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Mann. Do we have, is he still with us? Okay. Mr. Parsons,
I'll abstain.
Mr. Bushing.
Abstain.
All right, that concludes the roll call for that item and the motion passes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, everyone. I can't figure out, oh, here, stop share. I can't figure out how to stop share. So I think we kind of covered number 7, unless anybody has any specific updates on the fall line.
I have one brief update, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Show Off.
For the good of the order. So since the last working group meeting, we did have our design public hearing for the upper half of our trail for Longdale and Villa Park sections. We did have an in-person meeting as well as a online video with opportunity to comment. We received a total of 16 comments for over 4 miles of trail. They were all positive, surprisingly. And we had a fairly light turnout, even though we sent out over 500 postcards advertised on social media. I had it on our website, which is actually good because generally if people don't show up, they're okay with the project. So that was very positive. And then we also had a virtual public engagement for our Park Street phase, which is about 800 feet of section connecting Bryan Park to Spring Park in Henrico County. And we received 36 comments for that section. Most all of them were supportive. The biggest comment we got was to see what we can do to make a safer crossing across Lakeside Avenue coming out of Bryan Park, which was duly noted. And we were working with city staff and VDOT to make sure that is addressed. And Dorona, your team gave us some very constructive comments back on that. So we're working on addressing them now. So all very, very positive feedback we've received from the public on our sections of the trail. Also, real briefly, I'll mention that VDOT, Roy, I see is on here, and Scott Fisher, myself, and our project manager for the Longdale phase met with Dominion right-of-way folks, as well as some of the Dominion management team on site last month, as well as we had our design consultant who conveniently is the same design consultant for our Longdale phase and Villa Park phase as for the design build 1 phase and crossing into Hanover. It was a constructive meeting. There were some, I guess, follow-up items that needed to be done on both sides, but we did re-engage Dominion because they hadn't been very engaged lately on the trail, and I think their leadership has now made it very clear that this trail is a priority to get through the review process. So we have subsequently received all of the comments we had been waiting on from Dominion since June, within a week or so turnaround. So that was positive, and I don't know if Roy has anything to add, but I know they had some follow-up items to work through with Dominion as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any updates? I saw Miles type something. I don't know what that was, Miles. In the chat.
Yeah, I can share a quick update. Todd alluded to it earlier, and I guess it was discussed a little earlier this week, but last Friday, I was able to get the wayfinding plan on the agenda for the full authority. And for those who weren't able to watch or attend, they approved $75,000, up to $75,000 out of the operating budget for the authority to go towards creating a wayfinding plan that kind of fills that gap between the design plan that VDOT is working on and getting to construction. So we're hopeful that that is going to be helpful in starting to fill in some of these missing segments and getting the projects underway. My suggestion, I guess I'd just like you to say yes or no, is that staff could take a first shot at a draft scope to make sure that we have all the components that are necessary included, and then probably distribute to this group, Madam Chair, for additions and suggestions, so that we could start working on that, the RFP itself, or using a bench contract, an existing bench contract, to expedite the solicitation.
So would you want to bring that back to us at our next meeting, or do you want us to do it in between our next meeting?
I'd say as soon as we get it ready, we can email it if that's okay with everybody.
Okay. And then I don't know if it was more with the wayfinding or the furnishings. Are we getting any input from sports backers, or we are?
Yeah, I was gonna work directly with Brantley. We have back from Louise's time, we have an actual unsolicited proposal that was provided for a plan like this. So we were going to use that as kind of a guide and make sure that we have the components we need included in the scope, and then come back and make sure we have everything that you all have been thinking about too.
Okay. I think that's fine. And so I guess, do we have, just thinking about for our December timeframe, do we need a meeting in December, or do we need a meeting in January? Because would our next topics be, kind of doing that analysis just to make sure what the differences are in the three different furnishing, wayfinding, and all this, not so much the differences, but how they actually may work good together. And I don't know if we need to do that in December, or if we have time for January. So I'm just asking, do any of our members have any future topics that we need to discuss? No.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Question for Chet. So we have a CBTA Technical Advisory Committee meeting on the 14th is scheduled. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. I think that the thing that we need to work through, but that's probably more of a TAC item than it is a following working group item, is just the SPA for the localities. So that will inform the fall line funding, as well as the regional funding for all the other 30-some projects. So as long as we're handling that through that review and approval through TAC, I don't have anything specific that I'm aware of we need to cover in December for this group.
Okay, that's a great point, and I know that Eric does have that on his desk, so I'll give him a nudge and make sure that that's ready for discussion on the 14th, or in advance of the 14th.
Yeah, I mean, it still needs to go through all the locality attorney reviews. I know Barb and I had given him comments back, but that was really from our purview, not the legal purview, because there were some basic questions about this versus that kind of thing. So I guess we need to account for a fair amount of review time at local levels.
And then, yeah, you made me think about when you told me the TAC date. So how are we treating this recommendation to TAC in regard to, does finance happen before TAC?
This is one of those months where the yeah, the second Tuesday is before the second Monday or something like that. So, yeah, finance is the week before. And my suggestion is to give them an update at the finance meeting and
Because I
let them
thought
know
we
that.
talked about that in regard to the spending plan in general. I thought we had a plan. What was that? Was it,
The whole 64 thing.
yeah, because it would
Yeah.
be,
Yeah,
would it be that,
It's just part of that.
right.
yeah, so when it comes there, it's gonna come part of that. And then that whole thing, they're gonna, we had what we wanted them to do, direct TAC to concur with the finance committee. Okay, just want to make sure I can. All right.
So if I'm just looking at the order of meetings, then finance is before TAC, so TAC won't have an opportunity to take action on the recommendation today until after finance. So that's why that's just an update to finance, and then
Right.
the I guess January finance would be consideration of the TAC recommendation for the.
I don't think that's what we just said.
Oh, well then please enlighten me.
I think,
Yeah, go ahead, Barb.
yeah, I think we're including what we just talked about with the Fall Line Trail in the whole regional programming that we need to do to talk about 64 for VDOT. So all that's going to go to finance. And I think Dorona said they're going to direct TAC to concur with their recommendation. Can you do that? Anyway,
It's not how it's supposed to flow. It's supposed to be recommendation from the TAC to finance, right?
yeah, we
It doesn't
have run
always
into
have to be.
this. We've run into this issue before where, I don't know, it is a money thing, the programming.
Yeah.
So it does seem kind of appropriate that finance looks at it and kind of makes the recommendation to the full authority.
And I think we were doing that too for the 64, because this is in the same boat. TAC can't look at the 64 scenarios before finance has to, because the finance is before. So those scenarios that we're coming up with for 64 and now Fall Line will be shown to the finance committee first, just because of the timing of it, and VDOT needing to certify smart scale stuff.
Right.
So would it be an information item for finance, or would it be an action item?
Action.
Bypasses TAC at that point.
Action.
It's gonna be action, and then they're gonna just make sure that the technical part is done by asking TAC for concurrence. I mean, it's not like it's gonna be, they'll be able to say at the full body that TAC concurred with the finance. But otherwise, I mean, they have the power. It doesn't have to go to us first. I mean, as we've seen with the Goochland example.
I'd suggestion, Madam Chair, I think maybe for the Finance Committee, so Fall Line Work Group is a subcommittee of TAC. So I wonder if for Finance Committee, we should set a recommendation from staff for the Finance Committee to act on the financial components of the remainder of the Fall Line funding, of the 104.5.
Yeah,
And
and I think
then-
it should be the staff, the same 64 staff, Fall Line Trail staff
Yeah.
for the spending plan. That might work.
And then it would go, then it would flow back to TAC the week after for concurrence with the Finance Committee recommendation.
But yeah, staff recommendation, but for action by the finance.
All right.
I believe all of the 5 impacted jurisdictions were on the call today. So it would not be a surprise for anyone at the TAC meeting that this discussion took place, because they were all part of this.
Yeah, that's the benefit of all of us
Yeah.
being the same people. Okay, perfect. Ty, you feel okay?
I'm trying to, yes,
Oh,
I'll get there.
okay. Yeah, just think about 35 million.
Got it. I feel better now.
So, if we have nothing else, I will say that we will cancel our December 7th meeting, and we will reconvene in the first of the year while still responding to Chet in regard to the scope in the meanwhile. All right. with
One
that-
other,
Yes,
one
sir.
other item, Madam Chair. I know that there were a number of comments about not the blue column, but other information in that table being incorrect or needed to be updated. So I'd ask everyone to, I guess, coordinate directly with Liz, but maybe copy me or Miles just to make sure that we're aware of the changes. But I think we'll look to Liz and VDOT for the updated table at a certain point. I don't know if we want to set a date for that, but that's kind of a homework item.
Yeah, because this table won't go in front of the authority or anything yet anyway.
No, right.
So yeah, just use this time between now, just try to get it to her before Christmas.
Okay.
Or Thanksgiving. I don't know, whichever one you would like. Maybe we'll have Liz send out an email with a date that she might want to like it by. Maybe we'll do that.
That works. Thank you.
No problem. If there's no further questions, discussion, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good
Thanks,
week.
everybody.
Good job, team. Bye.
Yes, I know. Thank you.